Hello folks, this is Kevin Solway here once again for Men of the Infinite with another video about Buddhism, or rather the nonsense that's presented to you as Buddhism by a great many contemptible people, including the Dalai Lama. This time we're going to be dealing mainly with the Tibetan Buddhists, who are among the worst criminals in this regard. Tibetan Buddhism is most recognised by its prevalence of personality cults, most notably the one centred around the Dalai Lama, but also the personality cult based on the imaginary Dorje Shugden that you may not have heard so much about. Now, the problem is, when you get more than one personality cult in the same religion, the end result's always going to be conflict, and that's exactly what's happened. The cult of the Dalai Lama and the cult of Dorje Shugden have been in a long-running hate-filled battle. On the one side you have the followers of the Dalai Lama who see the Dalai Lama as a perfect god, who won't tolerate any criticism of their god, any dissent, and who will do anything he says. On the other side, the followers of Dorje Shugden will similarly do anything their guru instructs them to do. The following clips from a French documentary that illustrates just this point.
So, very, very briefly, just how taboo is it to criticise the Dalai Lama?
It is very taboo. Actually, our shooting of the reportage was very difficult because we had our camera smashed in, and the Dalai Lama is considered as a living god. He has achieved, well, supposedly, a level of clairvoyance that makes every decision he takes a rule of law. If you criticize the Dalai Lama, you are judged to be a Chinese spy.
Now, the Dalai Lama himself is, of course, no god, and in fact he's not even wise, because if he was even half wise, he would never have allowed this personality cult to form around him. If he had any real sense at all, he would never have allowed so many low-grade hangers-on to linger on his every word. And yes, I do mean low-grade. I'll be showing you more about the extent and the madness of this personality cult a little later in the video. Now, the Dalai Lama himself doesn't claim to be a Buddha or a god or perfect in any way. He claims that he's just a teacher and a symbol of a monk, all very humble, and that's how his Western audience tend to see him. But of course his own followers interpret his saying that he's not a god to mean that he really is a living god, because only a truly enlightened being would say that he wasn't enlightened.
Hey, Messiah! I'm not the Messiah! Will you please listen? I am not the Messiah! Do you understand? Honestly!
Only the true Messiah denies his divinity.
What?
The big difference between Monty Python's Brian and the Dalai Lama is that the Dalai Lama doesn't protest that people regard him to be a god. The Dalai Lama just goes along with it. No doubt there are many benefits to being regarded to be a god. For one thing, people are more likely to do what you tell them, and that's something any person can get used to. The truth is, the Dalai Lama isn't some kind of super intelligent evil mastermind or a sly con man. He's just a bumbling old clod who was put into his position by accident and who has no real idea what he's doing or what's going on around him. He's much too naive and weak-minded to have any idea of the harm and ugliness that follows him like flies after an open wound. The following clip shows the Dalai Lama in a classic state of denial that his own followers are committing violence against the followers of another cult in his name.
the Dalai Lama's followers keep posting denunciations on public walls. They denounce the worshippers of this deity, giving name, address, and often detailed information about its followers and their whereabouts. An advertisement that appeared in the Times of Tibet and in the magazine Knowledge.
Anyone who's against the Dalai Lama must be opposed without hesitation with men, money, and possessions. That is to say, by all means, including violence.
Why don't you simply advise people not to worship the deity Dorje Shugden and instruct others to be tolerant and avoid violence against those who continue to worship it?
Nobody harming on them.
But I've seen the calls for violence in the newspaper.
No.
I've seen it with my own eyes.
No. I think rumors.
You'll remember that I said the Dalai Lama was put into his position by accident. Well, what I meant by that is that when he was a child, he was recognised to be the reincarnation of the previous Dalai Lama, and so became the 14th of a series of Dalai Lamas. The problem is, belief in reincarnation is just a form of insanity, serious insanity. Reincarnation is the Buddhist version of the God of the gaps. Whatever a Buddhist doesn't understand about the way people behave, and that generally tends to be just about everything, they automatically put down to past lives. Here's a short example of the kind of insanity that runs through the whole of Tibetan Buddhism.
And Buddhists believe that even animals can improve their chances of becoming human again. So if you're a very good dog, you have a way of getting out of this so-called hell of being an animal and moving to the next step.
That's right.
I know a lot of dogs that we have as pets who are leading very good lives, so they may come back.
So
something
I think that you already, experienced among the dogs. You see, some are very comparatively more warm-hearted, isn't it?
Yes.
Some dogs always fighting like that. So those nicer dogs, you see, their future is much brighter.
Ha ha. You can see from that clip that the Dalai Lama has very little or no interest in truth at all. The reason that some domesticated dogs are less aggressive is because we have bred them over generations to be more submissive and servile, because they're easier for us to handle that way. It's not because those animals are kinder, more intelligent, and more considerate. The Dalai Lama is an idiot. How can I say anything other? He could have said on the subject of their dogs, if he had any sense, that he doesn't know why some dogs are less aggressive, and he doesn't know why whether less aggressive dogs have a brighter future than the aggressive dogs. But instead, what did he do? He just made up some mindless drivel and then laughed about it. He laughed about it. I've noticed that the Dalai Lama laughs when he lies, and he laughs also when he doesn't want the person he's talking to make a follow-up question. It's a nervous, passive-aggressive gesture that he uses to try and manipulate other people. You'll remember that I mentioned earlier that the Dalai Lama was formally recognised to be the reincarnation of the previous Dalai Lama. Well, the Dalai Lama himself says that this was a mistake and that he's not the reincarnation of the previous Dalai Lama. However, based on some childhood dreams, he thinks he might be the reincarnation of one of the earlier Lamas. You can imagine how much he laughs about that one. You'll notice in the same report that he says that as a child he was wise beyond his years. And he also says that that can only be explained by a past life memory. Well, no. That's totally untrue. Some people are just smarter and more perceptive than others for a whole range of reasons, be it genetics, diet, or any number of other reasons. But it's certainly not true that it can only be explained by past life memory. This is yet another example of pure insanity the pure insanity that's systemic in Tibetan Buddhism.